Welcome to the Raging Hardom podcast. This is not your Nana's Bible study. We're here to get raw and real with our fucking feelings. And today we have a special guest. This is Nate, podcast Nate from the Sobriety Diaries, a very successful podcast, and also the Podcast Revolution.
Yes.
Which is that a new project for you?
It is sort of an evolving project. And let me just start by saying, Brian, I am so proud of you. And you are really putting your heart into this project, and I can see it. And I'm so honored to be a part of it. And on the pink orange couch with you. So let me just start by saying that. And thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to see how it grows and helps those in the queer community, which I'm passionate about as well. So thank you. Yes, the Podcast Revolution Pod Studio, sort of an evolving project that I'm working on and helping other clients to start their podcasts, expand their podcast, and help others to kind of find their voice and share it with the world.
What led you to find your voice in the podcasting world? What led you to have something to say and
Great
put it
question.
out there?
Yeah. Well, I just celebrated 8 years of sobriety, and
It's awesome.
yes, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but certainly the most rewarding. So it's been a long journey. And during lockdown, I found myself isolating again, which is a character flaw, if you will, that I revert to when, things get tough, or particularly with COVID and lockdown. So I wasn't going to meetings. I wasn't seeing other alcoholics and my friends who helped me through that journey. So I started really more like informal YouTube vlogs about my sobriety and, challenges I was facing daily. And as a huge fan of podcasts, my wheels just started turning, and I thought that I could really turn it into a show where I helped other people share their stories, and in turn, sprinkle in my own experience and my own stories throughout the episode. So it really was born out of this need for my own recovery, selfishly, but it, has turned into a place where people are able to, share their experience and their own sobriety journeys, and we help a lot of people. So I'm really proud of it.
When I found an ad on TikTok.
Yeah.
And that's how I found you.
Yeah.
And, I called one of the guys that works with you doing marketing and getting appointments set up. And I just kind of vomited my ideas about the show. And he was like, I think you need to talk to Nate.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was so excited. We connected. Then I really got into watching some of your podcasts. You have some videos out there. You have a lot of audio podcasts. And, I was asking you about some of those yesterday and some of your guests. But I think one of the things we don't get enough of, or a lot of, is information about you. We
True.
we get little sprinkles of it when we're listening, but tell us about Nate. Where did you grow up? What was being a young gay kid in your household, in your community? What was that like, and what was the coming out process like for you?
It was very tough. It was not easy at all. I grew up in rural, small town Ohio, and I think we hear a lot from our queer brothers and sisters, like we always felt different, or we knew, we felt different from our peers at an early age. And that's kind of, how it started, or what I felt like. And I knew that I was different, but I didn't know necessarily what it was or how to pinpoint it at an earlier age. But I was always kind of the kid in the corner, the kid that, was on the playground by myself, like always keeping myself away from the group out of fear that people would pinpoint my difference or call me a fag or call me a sissy. Because that shit started at an early age, kindergarten, first grade, torturous days of school and just being afraid to go and mingle with kids. Man, kids are cruel. And I definitely saw that firsthand throughout my childhood and adolescence. So that's probably where the isolation started. And I still revert to that, like I said. But yeah, it was a difficult thing within my household. You asked about household and growing up. So within my household, very loving. My parents did the best that they could with what they had. It was 80s and 90s. My parents were both just blue collar, working folk. We probably lived paycheck to paycheck. I always had this sense that we were poor too. So I don't think we were poor, but my parents definitely weren't wealthy by any means. So that always kind of played into my fear or being different as well. And I, to this day, still have, like, I squirrel money away because I fear that, like, the money will run out or whatever. So I definitely have things now as an adult that carried over from childhood and that I still work on. It just speaks to the fact, right, that those traumas that we
really
have.
Interesting you said that, because as soon as you said that, like, something in me identified, and I was like, holy shit, I remember thinking that and feeling that.
Yeah.
I wonder where that comes from.
I don't know.
Did your parents complain about money?
They didn't complain about money, but I feel like whenever I asked for something, it was always no. Or when I wanted, like, the new toy or whatever, it was always no. When my parents got divorced, they fought about money and would pit each other against each other. Like, my dad was bitching that he was paying for my braces, or my mom would be bitching to him that she's the one that gave me lunch money every day. So it was like kind of an ongoing theme, and I just felt like I was this burden that they were bitching over, that they had to pay for shit for me.
Which I think that is, there has to be a commonality across all kids growing up. Like, we all are told no, but I just find it interesting that the way you processed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here having this moment because I'm like, was that part of the shame? Like, to be told no was invalidating, and to not be able to have these things to fit in was, I don't know.
For me,
I think that's interesting that you said that, because
Yeah.
immediately I'm like, holy shit, I thought I was poor.
Yeah. For me, it definitely factored into the shame. There was a shame that I was different. There was a shame that I was sort of embarrassed, or, there was shame surrounding, like, my dad's job. He came home from work dirty, and he was, like, in blue collar mill, coal mine clothes, and not in, like, a suit. There was this shame surrounding different parts of my life as a kid, and I think it all sort of culminated or added to this difference that I felt. But when I got a little bit older and realized, like, what the difference was, what being gay meant, and seeing, like, a gay person in the wild. We've talked about this weekend kind of identifying the first gay person that you see in the world. And it is this, like, almost aha moment of, this is a thing, and there are other
Do you
people.
remember the first gay person you saw?
I don't
alive
remember.
in person?
Yeah, I remember who it was because, again, being from a small town, obviously, there was a gay person. He was a hairstylist. He,
Of course.
was always hanging out with like the older women crowd because he did all of their hair and whatnot. But yeah, I remember his name's Ronnie.
Smoked cigarette, had lots of
Chain
hairspray.
smoked cigarettes, man. Chain smoked cigs. But then when I would see him in public, I would again distance myself from him because I didn't want people to
Really?
like compare or put two and two together. Just very, very isolating, very loner.
Did you find yourself wanting to like?
I did
Talk
want
to him?
I did for sure, but I didn't have the balls to do it. I don't think still to this day I've ever had a conversation with him.
And there's a video on TikTok of this little kid that walks up to Shaquille O'Neal and hugs his leg, and then the security pulls him back, and Shaquille's like, "No, no, no," and pulls him back over, and hugs the kid. And I watched that kid, and I'm like, that's what I wanted to do the first time I saw a gay adult, is just like go up and like touch him.
Imagine if Ronnie would have hugged me when I was 5, what that impact would have been like, or would it have changed anything? I don't know.
Well, because you think like Ronnie's generation in a small town.
He was probably
Just because it was
40.
known. It was known.
Yeah.
But I'll bet his life was known in rumor only.
Yeah,
Not that people were
for
a part
sure.
of his personal life.
for sure.
So let's fast forward. Growing up, high school, college. When did you come to the point of coming out and like stepping into that next level?
When I got my first taste of dick at Ohio University. No, so I went away to college at 18, and this new world opened up, of being able to be my true self, and sort of effeminate, nerdy, lanky, tall fucker, and that always, I was self-conscious about that too. Like we've talked about walking in a room and like feeling the eyes on you, or walking a little too sissy-like, which I always felt that I did. So the shame began to fall away. It certainly wasn't gone immediately when I went to college, but this new world opened up of me being able to explore relationships with guys and being my true self every day, and not having to sort of muffle that. So my freshman year, started dating around a little bit. I went home for Easter my freshman
When was
year.
your freshman year? What year was that?
That was the year 2000.
Oh, so you're talking like AOL chat rooms.
It was exactly. It was gay.com, and then you would give your AOL screen name to somebody, and then we
What
would
is
chat
the
on
other
AOL.
one that was back then? Men.com or
Yeah, men.
Adult Friend Finder or...
It was always gay.com or men.com. I worked at the library. I had a work study job in college at the library, and I would just sit there on the library's computer and fucking connect with guys on gay.com, and then transfer over to AOL, AIM chat. So yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I went home for Easter freshman year, so it would have been 2001, and came out really to everyone but my parents. And I say came out, but like I feel like it was always kind of known or assumed, that I was gay, and this is just me projecting or assuming that people did know. I mean, it's kind of no secret if you would meet me in real life, I think. But I came out to everyone but my parents that Easter weekend. And then being at home for the summer after my freshman year, I like officially came out. So 2001.
And the response was?
The response was, I treated it, and I look back kind of regretting how I did it, because I did it in a very emotional way, like really crying, and making this big dramatic deal about it. Whereas if I would have made it just like this positive thing, you know what I mean?
But
Like,
how
this
in
is
the world
me.
can you?
I know.
I mean, you have this secret that
Yeah.
has lived inside of you like a cancer that has grown and grown and grown and grown. And really, the only reason you're letting it out is this secret, this thing in you has gotten so big and so uncomfortable that it just
You
bursts.
just have to, right?
Like, and yeah, it comes out. And did you feel relief after?
I felt immense relief, and the reaction was positive. Both my parents, we love you no matter what. Like, we're glad to, know the real you. We felt like there was something that you were hiding. We're proud of you no matter what. So it was positive as it could have been. But
Do you
yeah,
wish your parents had just told you, hey, little gay boy?
yeah, to a degree, because then it would have taken the pressure off of me and put it on them. And yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where you look back, would it have been different? If I were open and out in high school, how things would have possibly been different. But I don't know. You never know. But overall positive response.
Yeah. And then, so coming out in college, and of course, I mean, your host, Sobriety Diaries.
Mm-hmm.
When did that story begin?
Oh,
that
Lord. Well, so again, small town Ohio, it was just the thing we did was party. There wasn't shit to do. So we would get a case of beer and find a field somewhere and have a bonfire and
y'all were
drink.
fancy with the
Yeah.
beer. We were Mad Dog 2020,
Oh,
baby.
shit.
Like, go to the gas station. Whoever had the biggest titties was buying.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
For it was like $2.99, right? For the Mad Dog?
I don't know, because my best friend had massive, enormous boobs, and she, all through high school,
She used them to your advantage.
people thought she was my mom.
Oh,
She wore she was my first drag queen, but it was
Love
a
it.
woman.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like that's how you got your alcohol. And
that's
it was
amazing. Bless her.
ashtray change.
True. Yeah, so just immediately when I started drinking, like it was this way for me to open up and just kind of relax myself. And in the beginning, it worked for me. I look back and think if I didn't have alcohol in the beginning, I probably would have never made friends. I wouldn't have like loosened up at all and been able to interact with peers and meet people and do things. So in the beginning, alcohol helped, as weird as that sounds, until it didn't. And immediately when even in high school, I knew that the way that I drank was different from other people. It was, I could wake up with the worst hangover, which I always did. I had terrible hangovers and usually blacked out and usually threw up. But I would wake up and think, oh my God, I can't wait to do it again.
For real?
Yes, can't wait to do it again.
See, that, I know you and I talked. We were in the car, and I was like, I never have been a big drinker.
Mm-hmm.
I used to because it was the thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that is the difference. We talked about, some people's DNA.
Yeah.
And no way do I want to wake up with a hangover. And
Only thing I thought was, are we doing it again tonight? Okay, cool.
wow,
Yes.
you were balls to the walls.
Balls to the wall immediately. 17 years old, 18.
Grab my wig, bitch. We're
Yeah.
going back
Come
out.
on. Where are we going? So I knew that. And to your point, yes, I think it's definitely a mix of genetics and environment. I think it's probably like an even mix.
Did your parents
For me, yes. My parents both drank, did drink always growing up. I think my mom probably has an unhealthy relationship with alcohol still. So, yes, it was around. They would have huge parties, block parties. So yes, it was definitely part of my childhood as well. Um, so yeah, throughout college, it just seemed to build and build. School was definitely secondary to my social life, and drinking, started to have consequences, DUIs here and there, bar fights here and there, getting knocked out and having metal plates in my face from mouthing off to big straight guys at the bar. They fucking knock me out. I wake up in an ambulance. Like, just messy shit that started to happen because of my drinking.
Wow.
Yeah. So, not good.
Bulletproof.
Didn't slow me down one bit. Fast forward to I was 32 years old. It was New Year's Eve. I had this like dull headache for a couple weeks, and I was just ignoring it. This was like depths of alcoholism. I was waking up in the morning, chugging a half pint of vodka, going to work, sneaking shots throughout the day. Just my life revolved around alcohol. Couldn't go 2 hours without having a drink. It was the only thought that I ever had. And it was New Year's Eve, and I was at my sister's house, and we were doing shit in the kitchen, and I collapsed. The right side of my body was non-functioning. We get to the hospital, and I had a stroke at the age of 32 because of my alcoholism and just destroying my body for the last 15 years. So that too, Brian, did not stop me from drinking. I laid in the hospital for 6 weeks and thought about alcohol every minute of the day and what my first drink would be. Stopped at the liquor store after learning to walk again, rehabilitating my fingers so that I could use my hands again, and stopped at the liquor store on the way home from the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there, and so you're going to therapy and you're trying to recover from this stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Did the doctors know you were drinking still?
No. It never even got brought up, which is crazy. Like, they were doing all these tests and trying to figure out why a 32-year-old, otherwise healthy...
Did you know?
Oh, I knew for sure. Never mentioned it. They never asked. They were running tests, doing genetic tests to figure out, like, why I possibly would have had a stroke. All the while, I knew exactly why. Never mentioned it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild that you were somewhat self-aware to be such a messy bitch.
Totally.
I mean, like, we're talking a different level of messy when you know why the stroke, and then you decide to. Wow. And had you had relationships to this point?
Yes. So I was single at the time. So this happened after I moved to Maryland for a job and was in a relationship there. Ended up hating Maryland, hating the job. I was actually at home just on holiday. I took a couple weeks off work. It was New Year's Eve. I was back at home in Ohio, and that we had broken up prior to me coming home for the holidays, but we were still fucking and still kind of like not fully broken up. But that was kind of the nail in the coffin, if that tells you anything about how toxic the relationship was. I have this medical trauma, this emergency life-threatening incident, and he's like, oh, I can't deal with that. Okay, goodbye. So that was also the end of a 1.5 year relationship.
Did he drink also?
We fucking partied every day, all day together.
Yeah. But, thinking back on the fact that this is not what he signed up for.
Exactly. He wanted to keep partying. He knew that this would put like a dent in that.
And How did you feel like you wanted him to save you?
I felt like, well, I knew that if I wanted to try to get past this and eventually, like, of course, I knew that, like, if I didn't want to die before I turned 40, I would have to stop drinking. But I was doing everything to protect my drinking so that I didn't have to stop. That's why I never mentioned it to the doctors or never mentioned it. Like, my parents knew I partied and, drank or whatever, but not to the degree that I was. And I didn't want it to come into play as far as my health goes so that people wouldn't force me to stop drinking, if that makes sense.
So how many years now sober?
8.5, actually. So it was 8 years in October.
Okay.
So after the stroke, continued drinking for about 8 months. My best friend had gotten sober with her own, issues and started going to meetings. And about 4 months before I did. So, she would just kind of say like, oh, you wouldn't believe like these amazing people I met. And if you ever want to come to a meeting, like feel free. Like she never pressured me or said like, you got to stop drinking. You're coming to a meeting with me. It was always just like, hey, if you ever want to. And one day the demons just were so bad and there was literally nothing else. Like I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've drank everything. I've done everything. I've snorted and taken everything. Like it just got to the point finally where I was like, okay, let me go test these meetings out, see what happens. And then slowly but surely it just kind of stuck.
That's so awesome. Like, how do you find ways to connect to the queer community now? Like, are you involved in the queer community? Do you have friends is your friend your best friend that got clean?
Straight woman, straight white girl.
Hag?
She's the best hag there is.
Hag or fruit fly? There's two different ones.
She's a hag.
Okay.
Yeah, full on hag.
full hag.
Full hag.
Fruit flies are... You gotta be careful with them.
Sorry.
They're lightweight and move around a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the gays.
No, I prefer just...
They're from banana to banana.
Yeah, no, I'm not sharing.
No.
You my hag.
And then, so how are you connecting with the community now, if you are connecting, and what does that look like on this side of sobriety?
Yes, that's a great question because, there is definitely this sort of party culture in the queer community and this circuit scene and this, party atmosphere, I think that gets attached to the queer community. So it is interesting to, put yourself out there and insert myself into this specific queer sober community. And
I'm so glad you clarified that.
yeah,
Insert myself into this specific queer
it is specific,
sober community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you asked me like the other day if, if a potential partner or if I would date someone that does drink. And yeah, I mean, the answer, do they drink in a healthy way, is not someone that's at the bar every night or that has an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. But if they drink, yeah, that's cool. That's you. And if you can handle it and if you have a healthy relationship with alcohol, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Not having alcohol at home. Could you live in a home?
Probably not, just because I don't know if I trust myself. I mean, I trust myself. I'm fully I can go to bars, I can be around drunk people. I know that my sobriety is
But when you're alone
strong.
at home,
Yes.
I mean,
I don't want to open myself up to that. So no, I would say definitely no to alcohol in the house.
oh yeah.
And if that's a problem for someone, I would probably say they don't have a healthy relationship with alcohol. So that probably would be a pass.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So now we're to this point.
Yeah.
We're sober. We are. What type job are you doing before this shutdown, pandemic, podcast?
Yeah.
Birth?
So I was in corporate America on the HR side of things in different capacities. I spent a long time in the restaurant business and some warehouse logistics and shipping business, but all in the human resources capacity, recruiting, interviewing, things like that. And always really loved the recruiting side of things and like talking to people, interviewing, finding jobs for people. So that definitely played into hosting and interviewing people. And that was a passion of mine before podcasting. And I think it made that sort of leap from YouTube vlogging to like more formal interview hosting that much easier. So I was still working in corporate America through much of the initial success of the Sobriety Diaries and other shows, taking on my first couple clients, until there was, revenue to live off of. But after the launch of the Sobriety Diaries and that success, I started really building my coaching framework and putting like the framework of the business together, and how I can help others to achieve podcasting success as well. And then officially took on entrepreneurship and left corporate America almost 2 years, like a year and 10 months ago. So 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty vulnerable place to be in, to be putting your soul on the internet.
Yeah.
And be working in corporate America.
Yes.
Especially HR.
Especially HR, when people find your podcast. Yes,
a
exactly.
Mom
being like this portrait of, corporate, like people look at HR like the police, of a company, like the perfect whatever.
Like a sugar-coated cunt.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was this conflict of,
did anybody at work ever hear your podcast?
Yeah. Which, that's fine. I'm proud of my sobriety. I don't say anything on the show that like I wouldn't say really in real life, but I think there was a hesitation, as podcasting and social media are definitely different, and I still for sure have work to do on the social media side of things. Like, I think being able to have the growth and the success with the Sobriety Diaries without necessarily pushing it super hard on social media was great. I mean, that's what got me here today, but it also, like, I haven't had to really jump into social media full time. But I'm coming to the realization that for the business side of things, like, I do need to expose myself to new people, get the business out there more. So that's something I'm definitely working on now, and that vulnerability and
learning to twerk and
absolutely clapping those cheeks, all the good stuff for sure.
No, I mean, I think it's really cool how you have had success. How many downloads was your first episode?
Our launch episode was 10K.
That's nuts.
10,000 downloads for my first episode, which from what I hear or like ask other people is, pretty unheard of unless you're a known name celebrity launching a podcast, which was the initial like, okay, fuck, how do I capitalize on this? How do I, and that's like right away, the framework started.
Was there a solid upward trajectory, or was there a roller coaster in the beginning that
Total roller coaster. It wasn't like 10K, 12K, 14. You know, it was definitely, it looked more like mountains and valleys in the beginning. Definitely still great numbers. I think episode 2 was probably like 2,500, 5K, 3K, 20K. You know, it was certainly a roller coaster. But we just, as of January 30th of this year, we surpassed 1 million downloads.
do you ever struggle with believing in yourself?
All the time. Imposter syndrome is rampant in this brain.
Especially when you have all the eggs in this basket.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with being sober, the stress of the weight of this thing you're creating, and needing people to like it
Yes.
for it to succeed
True.
and for you to eat food and
Live.
so that's a lot of added pressure. How do you juggle all of those things and your self-worth? Like, what are some of the practices you do to handle this burden now?
Great question. My therapist is probably my best friend. I know I shouldn't say that because I have to separate the...
I want to hug mine every time I go in.
Love
And
her. Sarah, best. God, I love you. Yeah, so I think recognizing that and knowing that I have to continually work on it is huge. And, you know, in the car ride here today, we were talking about that sort of mental fitness, and you have to be continually working on it. And like, if you don't go to the gym for 3 weeks, then you're going to be able to tell, you know, that you haven't been working on it. And keeping that in mind is huge. You know, I wake up, I meditate every morning. I do some breath work in the evenings, and I see my therapist once a week. So like, those are the 3 main pillars of like my working on myself, or however you want to frame that. It's part of my sobriety. It's part of my mental health. So those are the 3 main pillars of that. I think being able to talk to people, and, you know, whether it's sober or we're talking about trauma or, you know, queer culture, whatever it may be, all these different aspects of my life helps. You know, conversations like this help me to understand other people in this world and how I fit into it. And the podcast has done so much more for me than just, you know, help to build a following and eventually this business. It's really changed the way that I see other people in the world and how I interact with them.
oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
This is all fresh and new, but I mean, it's crazy how your story is now branching out into other stories, because I knew I wanted to do this, but, you know, if not for you, if not for your taking steps and being willing to come all the way to Alabama,
It's so fun.
but yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that it's not just affecting you now. And I think this is one thing that we're not hearing as much anymore. And I don't know if it was the pandemic, or we used to hear people that wanted to leave legacy. Legacy was important. I don't think anybody thinks the fucking world's going to last. So everybody's like, I just want all I can get.
Yeah.
And we've lost sight of our actions create ripples that create actions that create more ripples and more actions, and they continue to go. I feel like, as I know for our country, it feels sort of like we've lost sight of that, and now we're like, just give me all I can fucking take. And
Great point.
And, we're watching in society where give me all I can take and you don't need any. Like, you're not valuable enough to get any.
Is outrageous.
But there's no talk about legacy anymore. And I think it's really cool. That's what you're does that,
When you say it like that, it's that imposter syndrome. I like to think that I that there will be a thought someday that I did through, I guess, my own vulnerability and willingness to share my story, that in some way it either helped other people to open up and share their own story, or perhaps helped with their own sobriety. And I would love to have a legacy through that.
I think that's really cool what you're doing, and how you said HR took you to this place of doing interviews, but now it's taken you to this place of coaching other people to really being able to go back and help others build and grow something. And I don't know,
it's branching.
I think it's
like
really,
my little children go and do their own thing. And
you are Mama Nate
now.
Yes. Mama Nate
Here she is.
No, I think that's awesome. If you could tell that little boy who doesn't know another gay, who has never seen one in person, and they find this video, what would you say to that little kid?
I would say that Nate, you are not abnormal. You are special. You will find your place in this world. People will accept you. It gets better and you'll be happy. But I think of that, the most important is you're not abnormal. Because I did feel abnormal. I felt like it was something wrong with me. And that fueled a lot of what I felt as a kid. So you're not abnormal, Nate.
What would little Nate be? What would he be most surprised by as you right now? Like, what would blow his fucking lid?
I think the fact that I get to do what I love every day. My dad very, instilled work ethic, and, if you're a hard worker and nice to people, that will get you far in life. And I've always thought about that. And he would say, like, if you can find a job that you love doing, then it's not like a job. And I think the fact that I get to do what I love every day and still inspire people or create this legacy, hopefully, he would be shocked. Little Nate would.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about those little kids, huh?
Mind-blowing.
So this is the point where we give Nate some hard ones.
He's getting the papers out.
Can you take some hard ones?
Yes, he can, like a champ.
She said, girl, please.
Girl.
Can I? All right, so I'm just going to grab a few. Who was your biggest cheerleader growing up?
Oh, my sister.
Yeah?
Yeah, Nicole, for sure. She has always... She would play Barbies with me in secret because she knew, like, I didn't want people to see or, like, my parents to know.
Did she have pretty Barbies?
No, they were messy as fuck. Their hair was half cut off, and we had ugly Barbies. But yeah, she's always been right there cheering me on.
Who's your biggest cheerleader today?
Still Nicole, for sure. We are still super close in the same city, right down the road. She saved my life numerous times with sobriety, with the stroke. Definitely still on the sidelines cheering.
What is the beautiful part of you that you wish everyone could see?
I think I show it. I think that I've been able to find and identify this thing of just being so open and vulnerable. And when people see that, they want to do the same. So I think sharing my story and doing what I do, again, like I said, I get to do what I love every day. So I think I have found that.
Are you a good person?
Yes, absolutely.
What makes you a good person?
I think I almost to a fault consider other people's feelings or comfort before my own.
That's
Total
exhausting.
people pleaser. It's exhausting at times. And I'm working on it because I don't think that should come first. Obviously considering other people's feelings and is important, but I think, making sure that I'm not impacting others in a negative way.
So, macho ma'am, nice lady, what are some words that make you want to fight a bitch then?
Oh God. It's so funny. I think fag is always triggering for me, just because it started at an early age.
Oh yeah. See, I think it's funny now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's funny how we have taken the word queer back because, like, it wasn't that long ago. I feel like queer had the same connotation that fag does or did. I think fag is getting less offensive. I think
it's our word now, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a straight cis anything, like, you can't have it.
You can't.
Like,
no.
This is our word.
So
that we think is hilarious.
What if a straight cis white man says queer, though? Are we okay with that now?
Yeah, because I think queer has a true definition and meaning.
True.
Like, to be odd and unusual, to be strange, which I don't think are negative things.
Strange as fuck.
I think if you are not walking around this world feeling queer, then you are not being fucking real.
You're boring as fuck.
Because you're like nobody else.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, so I think everyone should have a queer feeling in them. But I don't think everybody should be like fag.
Right.
Or sissy in that walk.
Sissy that walk, bitch.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for doing this.
Brian, thank you for everything. This weekend has taught me so much, and I will take...
Do you feel more gay?
I feel like the fucking queen of Alabama. No, but yeah, seeing your relationship with your husband and the life that you have built, and now venturing into this new project, it's been a great weekend, and thank you for having me too.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming in and holding my hand and getting me set up.
Just the beginning. Just the beginning.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share with your friends and family. Also, if you have comments, questions, or maybe you want to share your story, you can email me at raginghardonpodcast@gmail.com.